My name is Elena, and I thought marrying Ryan was the happiest moment of my life. He was kind, ambitious, and from a humble family. We truly loved each other, or at least that's what I believed. Until his mother came into the picture. When Ryan and I got married, I chose to live simply. I never told him that my father, David Sterling, was one of the wealthiest businessmen in the country. I wanted love, not money, to define us. At first, my mother-in-law, Margaret, seemed sweet. But that changed after our wedding. She started making comments, subtle at first, about how I wasn't useful enough, how I wasn't raised to work hard, and how Ryan deserved someone more practical. I tried to stay respectful. I helped with the housework, cooked, and took care of her when she fell ill. But no matter what I did, it wasn't enough. One evening, while Ryan was at work, I was preparing dinner. Margaret walked in, scowling. "You're too slow. You can't even chop vegetables right," she snapped, grabbing the knife from my hand. I whispered, "Please, stop shouting." "I'm trying my best," but she didn't stop. She pushed me aside and muttered, "Women like you are only good for spending men's money." I felt my chest tighten, not from anger, but from hurt. I wanted to defend myself, but something in her eyes told me she wanted me to break. When Ryan came home, Margaret smiled sweetly and said, "Elena accidentally burned dinner again." He looked disappointed, not knowing the truth. Days turned into weeks, and the treatment got worse. She'd insult me in front of guests, mock my clothes, and once even threw my sketchbook into the trash, saying, "Art won't feed you." That night I cried. I didn't tell Ryan because I didn't want to come between him and his mother. But one day, fate stepped in. My father had been trying to reach me for weeks. I'd kept my distance, wanting to prove I could live without his wealth. But he decided to visit unexpectedly. When he arrived, I wasn't home. "Margaret was. Who are you?" she asked, frowning at the man in an elegant suit. "I'm David Sterling," my father replied calmly. Elena's father. Her face froze. She had seen his name before, on magazine covers, business lists, charity galas. I returned home minutes later to find her standing stiffly in the living room, pale as snow. My father turned to me and said, "Elena, is this the woman who's been mistreating you?" Tears filled my eyes, but before I could answer, Margaret started stammering, Mistreating? Oh no, we've had minor misunderstandings." My father stepped closer, his voice firm but calm. "You should know something, Mrs. Carter. My daughter chose to live modestly, not because she had to, but because she values love and humility. The way you've treated her says more about you than it ever will about her." Ryan walked in just as my father finished speaking. He looked from his mother to me, realizing finally what had been happening all along. Margaret began to cry. "I'm sorry, Elena. I didn't know." I gently replied, "It's not about who my father is. It's about respect. That's all I ever wanted." Ryan hugged me tightly and whispered, "I should have seen it sooner. I'm so sorry." From that day forward, things changed. Margaret started making genuine efforts to bond with me, helping in the kitchen, asking about my art, even defending me when relatives made rude comments. Months later, we invited my father to dinner. Margaret had baked her famous pie, and everyone laughed around the table. My father smiled and said, "You see, Elena, sometimes life tests us, but those who love you will always see the truth in the end." And for the first time since my wedding day, I felt peace. Not because my father was powerful, but because the truth finally brought healing.